The red dust of the moon's far side looked the same as it had for millions of years. Dr. Taiho Kim stared at his scanner screen and frowned. Something was wrong with the readings. The magnetic field showed a massive spike 200 meters below the surface, right under the Aitken Basin. Commander Park, you need to see this, Taiho said into his radio. Commander Yuna Park was in the main station reviewing supply reports. She stopped typing and picked up her headset. What is it, Taiho? I'm getting strange readings. Really strange. There's something down there, Yuna sighed. Instruments broke all the time on the moon. The extreme temperatures and radiation made equipment unreliable. Run a diagnostic. It's probably just a sensor error. I already did. 3 times. I also checked the backup sensors. They all show the same thing. That got Yuna's attention. She stood up from her desk. I'm coming out. 20 minutes later, Yuna stood beside Taiho at the survey site. She looked at the data herself. The readings didn't make sense. The magnetic signature was enormous and perfectly circular. Nothing natural looked like that. How deep did you say? She asked. 200 meters. Maybe 210. Yuna pulled up the geological surveys of the area. Nothing was supposed to be down there except rock and ice. She checked the historical data from previous missions. No one had ever detected anything unusual in this location. Get Doyun and bring the drilling equipment, Yuna said. We're going to take a look. Doyun Choi arrived with the heavy drilling rig 2 hours later. He was the team's structural engineer, a practical man who liked problems he could solve with tools and mathematics. You really think there's something down there? He asked. The sensors don't lie, Taiho said. Sensors lie all the time, Doyun replied. But he started setting up the drill anyway. Yuna called the rest of the team. Dr. Hana Lee was a xenobiologist, which was a strange job to have when no one had ever found alien life. She spent most of her time studying extremophile bacteria in the lunar ice. When Yuna told her about the readings, Hana dropped everything and suited up immediately. Minho Song, the systems specialist, came along to monitor the drilling operation. Sora Kang grabbed her cameras. As the mission's documentarian, she recorded everything. The drilling took 2 weeks. They worked in shifts, carefully removing the lunar soil and rock. At night, the temperature dropped to negative 170 degrees. During the day, it rose to 120. The drill bit had to be replaced 5 times. On the 14th day, the drill hit something that wasn't rock. We've got contact, Doyun said. The resistance just changed completely. They all gathered around the drill site. Taiho's sensors were going crazy now. The magnetic field was so strong it was interfering with their suit electronics. Pull the drill up, Yuna ordered. Let's see what we've found. They extracted the drill and peered down into the hole. Lights from their helmets illuminated something dark and smooth at the bottom. It definitely wasn't natural rock. We need to widen the hole, Hana said. Her voice was shaking with excitement. We need to see more. It took another 3 days to create an opening large enough to get a clear view. When they finally cleared away the last of the debris, they all stood in silence. The object below was clearly artificial. It had a metallic surface, perfectly smooth, darker than anything they had ever seen. Their light seemed to disappear into it rather than reflect off it. That's a ship, Sora whispered. That's an alien ship. We don't know that yet, Doyun said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yuna tried to measure the temperature of the hull. Her instrument showed no reading at all. The metal registered neither hot nor cold. She tried other tests. The material absorbed all wavelengths of light. It showed no electrical conductivity. The carbon dating equipment gave impossible results, showing the object was simultaneously brand new and billions of years old. This doesn't make sense, Minho said, checking his instruments again and again. None of these readings make sense. Taiho noticed something strange. When he looked directly at the ship's surface, it seemed solid and still. But when he looked away and caught it in his peripheral vision, it seemed to shift and move slightly. Is anyone else seeing that? He asked. Seeing what? Yuna replied. The way it moves when you're not looking at it. They all tried it. Some saw the movement. Others didn't. Sora tried to film it, but the camera showed only a static surface. They spent days trying to find a way inside. The hull showed no seams, no doors, no weak points. They tried cutting it, but every tool passed through it as if it were made of light. Yet when they touched it with their bare hands through the thin glove material, it felt solid and strangely warm. Hana was the first to notice the pattern. She had been walking around the exposed section of the hull, touching different areas. "There's something here," she said. "I can feel it. It's like the ship is aware of us." "Ships don't have awareness," Doyen said. "This one might," Hana replied. Tahoe decided to try an experiment. He walked toward a specific section of the hull, moving at a steady pace. As he approached, a hexagonal outline appeared on the surface. It glowed faintly with a blue light that seemed to come from inside the material itself. "Stop," Yuna said. "Don't touch it yet," but the hexagon was already opening. It didn't slide or rotate. It simply became an opening, as if the solid metal had decided to stop existing in that location. They stared into the dark entrance. Their helmet lights showed a corridor that extended into darkness. The interior walls had the same light-absorbing quality as the exterior. "We need to report this to Earth," Doyen said. "We need authorization before we go in there." "The signal delay is 20 minutes each way," Yuna said. "By the time we get a response, anything could happen. That opening might close." "We should wait," Minho agreed. "This is too important to rush," but Hana was already moving toward the entrance. "I didn't become a xenobiologist to study bacteria forever," she said. "This is what I've been waiting for my entire life." Yuna made a decision. "We go in, but carefully. Full safety protocols. We stay together. We stay in constant communication, and if anything seems dangerous, we retreat immediately." They checked their suits, their air supplies, their equipment. Everything was ready. Sora raised her camera and started recording. "For the record," Yuna said, "this is Commander Yuna Park, Lunar Research Station Alpha. The date is September 14th, 2157. We are about to enter what appears to be an alien spacecraft discovered beneath the Aitken Basin. Whatever we find in there, we do this for all of humanity." She took the first step through the hexagonal opening. The others followed. Behind them, the entrance remained open, showing the gray lunar landscape and the bright Earth hanging in the black sky. None of them noticed when the entrance quietly sealed itself shut. The corridor stretched ahead of them, longer than it should have been. Doyen had measured the exposed section of the ship's hull. The entire visible structure was maybe 50 meters across, but they had already walked more than 100 meters down this corridor, and it showed no sign of ending. "This isn't possible," Doyen said. He stopped walking and checked his suit's distance tracker. "We've gone too far. We should have reached the other side by now." Yuna looked back the way they had come. The entrance was gone. Behind them was only more corridor stretching into darkness. "Where's the door we came through?" "It was right there," Taiho said, pointing. But there was nothing there. Just smooth walls that absorbed their light. Minho pulled up the map function on his wrist computer. It showed their path as a straight line, but the line was now longer than the ship itself. "The sensors must be malfunctioning," he said. "Or the ship is bigger on the inside than the outside," Hana suggested. "That's impossible," Doyen replied. "Everything about this ship is impossible," Hana said. They continued forward. The corridor began to curve, or maybe it was always curved and they just hadn't noticed before. The walls seemed to shift when they weren't looking directly at them. Sora tried to film the effect, but when she played back the footage, it showed only a normal, straight corridor. "My camera isn't recording what I'm seeing," Sora said.
"How is that possible?"
They reached an intersection. 3 corridors branched off in different directions. Yuna was about to choose the middle path when she felt something strange. The gravity suddenly pulled her toward what she had thought was a wall. She stumbled and caught herself, but now she was standing on what had been the wall a moment ago. The corridor had rotated 90 degrees, or she had, or both. "What just happened?" she asked. The others were still standing on what Yuna now perceived as the ceiling. From their perspective, she was the one standing on the wall. "You just rotated," Minho said. "Or the ship did. I'm not sure." Taiho tried to walk toward Yuna. As he moved, his sense of gravity shifted too. Suddenly he was standing next to her, and the corridor seemed normal again. The others remained on what was now clearly the ceiling, walking upside down. "This is making me sick," Doyen said. "Nothing about this makes sense." They decided to stick together. Everyone moved until they were all standing on the same surface, sharing the same sense of up and down. They chose the left corridor and entered it carefully. The new corridor was filled with strange objects. There were panels on the walls that showed symbols, but the symbols changed, depending on who looked at them. Tahoe saw geometric patterns. Hana saw what looked like biological diagrams. Sora saw colors she couldn't name, colors that didn't exist in normal light. Are you all seeing the same things I am? Hana asked. Describe what you see, Yuna said. Hana tried to explain the biological diagrams, but when she spoke, the words came out as strange sounds. Not Korean, not English, not any language, just incomprehensible noise. I can't understand you, Taiho said. You're not speaking words, Hana tried again. Same result. This is impossible. I'm speaking normally. I can hear myself. We hear noise, Minho said. They tried experimenting. When they talked about simple things like directions or equipment, they could understand each other. But when they tried to describe what they saw on the panels, the words became meaningless sounds. They entered a large chamber. It was filled with devices that made no sense. There were crystals floating in midair, rotating slowly, but instead of glowing, they seemed to emit darkness. The light from the team's helmets bent away from the crystals, creating shadows that pointed in the wrong directions. Doyen approached one of the devices. It looked like a machine with moving parts, but the parts were moving backward. A gear would turn clockwise, then the next connected gear would also turn clockwise, which should have been impossible. A piston would move down, then the cylinder would move up to meet it, reversing the normal cause and effect. This is hurting my brain, Doyen said. These machines violate every law of physics I know. Minho checked his chronometer. We've been inside for 3 hours, he said. Sora looked at her own timer. My chronometer says 18 minutes. They compared all their timekeeping devices. Every single one showed a different time. Some showed they had been inside for hours. Some showed only minutes. Taiho showed they had been inside for negative time, as if they had entered before they had actually arrived. Time isn't working right in here, Hana said. Time always works right, Minho insisted. It's the most fundamental constant in the universe. Not in here, it isn't, Yuna said quietly. They pressed deeper into the ship. Each room was stranger than the last. They found a chamber where their footsteps echoed before they took the steps, another room where their shadows moved independently, walking in directions the team members weren't walking, a corridor where they could see themselves coming from the opposite direction, but when they met their duplicates, nothing happened. The duplicates just walked through them like ghosts. Doyen was struggling. His entire worldview was built on mathematics and engineering principles. But here, 1 + 1 didn't always equal 2. A right angle wasn't always 90 degrees. 'Cause didn't always precede effect. I need to get out of here, he said. This place is wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. We need to stay together, Yuna said. They found a doorway and passed through it. On the other side was another corridor. Doyen looked back. The doorway was gone. There was only a solid wall. That's impossible, he said. We just came through there, he touched the wall. It was solid. He could see his own footprints in the dust on the floor, leading directly to the wall as if he had walked through solid matter. My footprints go to the wall, he said, his voice rising. The wall is solid. How did I get here? How did any of us get here? Calm down, Yuna said. We'll figure this out. But Doyen was panicking. His breathing became rapid. Nothing makes sense. The math doesn't work. The physics doesn't work. How can we navigate something where reason doesn't apply? Hana took his arm. Look at me, Doyen. We're still here. We're still alive. The ship is strange, but it's not hostile. How do you know? Doyen asked. How can you possibly know anything about this place? I feel it, Hana said. The ship is testing us. It wants to see how we react. Ships don't want anything, Doyen said. Ships don't think. This one does, Hana replied. They found another chamber. This one was different. It contained several large pod-like structures arranged in a circle. Each pod was transparent, and inside they could see figures. But the figures looked different to each person who looked at them. Taiho saw crystalline beings like living diamonds with geometric patterns flowing through them. Yuna saw humanoid shapes, almost human but not quite, with features that seemed familiar yet alien. Minho saw pure geometric shapes, spheres, and cubes that somehow seemed alive. Hana saw biological forms, unlike any Earth creature but definitely organic. Sora saw something she couldn't describe, beings that existed in more dimensions than her eyes could process. What are they? Sora whispered. I don't know, Yuna said, but they're not dead. I don't think they're fully alive either. They're somewhere in between. Minho tried to photograph one of the pods. His camera worked, but when he looked at the screen, the image showed something completely different from what he saw with his eyes. And when he looked at the screen again a second later, The image had changed to something else entirely. They heard a sound. It came from everywhere and nowhere. It might have been a voice or music or just a vibration. It resonated in their bones more than their ears. "The ship is speaking to us," Hana said. "That's impossible," Doyen said again, but his voice was weak now. He had said impossible too many times. The word was losing its meaning. Minho was in trouble. He had wandered away from the group, following what he thought was a logical pattern in the corridor structure. He believed he could map the ship if he just applied the right mathematical principles, but now he was trapped. The corridor ahead of him split into infinite paths. Each path split again and again, creating a fractal maze of possibilities. Minho tried to calculate the optimal route. He pulled up probability equations on his wrist computer. The numbers made sense. They told him to take the third path, then the second branch, then the fifth. But when he followed the calculation, he ended up back where he started. He tried again. Same result. The math was correct, but it kept leading him in circles. "Commander Park," he said into his radio. "I need help." "I'm stuck," Yuna's voice crackled back. "Where are you?" "I don't know. I tried to map the corridor structure. Now I can't get out." The team rushed to find him. They followed his signal, but the signal seemed to be coming from multiple places at once. They found him standing at the intersection, staring at his computer screen with desperate intensity. "The calculations should work," he muttered. "The math is perfect." "Why isn't it working?" Sora looked at the branching corridors. She didn't think about math or logic. She just felt which way seemed right. "That way," she said, pointing to a path that looked no different from the others. "How do you know?" Minho asked. "I don't know. It just feels right." "We need logic, not feelings," Minho said. But Yuna made a decision. "We've tried logic. Let's try something else. Sora, lead the way." Sora walked forward, choosing paths based on nothing but intuition. She didn't calculate or analyze. She just moved where it felt natural to move, and the maze opened before her. Within minutes, they were back with the rest of the team. Minho stared at his useless computer. "That shouldn't have worked," he said quietly. "But it did," Hana said. "Maybe this ship doesn't respond to logic. Maybe it responds to something else." Yuna gathered the team together. She was the commander, trained in protocol and procedure. Everything in her training said they should retreat, report their findings, and wait for experts to arrive. But something inside her said that was the wrong choice. "Listen to me," she said. "This ship operates on rules we don't understand. Every time we try to apply our science, our math, our logic, we fail. But when we stop thinking and start feeling, things work. I'm ordering us to change our approach. Stop trying to understand. Start trying to feel." "That goes against everything we know," Doyun said. "I know," Yuna replied. "But we're not in a place where what we know matters anymore." They experimented with this new approach. Tejo stood in front of a sealed doorway. Instead of looking for a control panel or mechanism, he simply wanted the door to open. He imagined it opening. He felt it opening. And it did. Hana approached a panel covered in alien symbols. Instead of trying to translate them, she let herself feel what they meant. Images flooded her mind. Emotions that weren't hers. Concepts without words. She understood without understanding. "The ship is teaching me," she said. Not through words or data, through feelings and intuitions. Sora discovered that her emotional state affected the ship's environment. When she felt afraid, the corridors became narrow and oppressive. When she felt calm, they opened up. When she felt curious, new doorways appeared. "It's responding to us," she said, "to our emotions." Doyen was struggling more than the others. His mind was built on logic and structure. Letting go of that felt like letting go of himself. But he tried. He stood in front of a machine that made no sense and stopped trying to understand it. Instead, he just observed it, appreciated its strange beauty, wondered at its impossibility without trying to explain it. The machine responded. It began to glow. Patterns of light flowed through it, and somehow Doyen understood what it did. Not through knowledge, but through a deeper awareness. "I see it now," he said. "I don't understand it, but I see it." Taiho found what appeared to be a control center. The room was filled with panels and displays that shifted and changed constantly. He approached the central console. There were no buttons or switches, just a smooth surface that seemed to pulse with inner light. He placed his hand on it. Nothing happened. He tried to activate it by thinking commands at it. Nothing. Then he stopped trying to control it and just felt curious about it. curious about what it was, what it could do, what it had seen. Information flooded into his mind. Not as data or images, but as pure understanding. He saw the ship's history, felt its purpose, understood its nature in a way that bypassed language entirely. This ship was built by beings who exist differently than we do, he said slowly. They don't experience reality in a linear way. Past, present, and future are all the same to them. They built this ship to explore realities where physics works differently. That's why our physics doesn't apply here. We're inside a vessel designed to operate in multiple dimensions at once. That's impossible, Minho said, then caught himself. I need to stop saying that. Yuna approached the control panel. She placed her hand next to Taiho's. She felt determination, purpose, hope. The ship responded to those feelings. Systems activated throughout the vessel. Lights began to glow in colors they had never seen before. It likes us, Hana said suddenly. The ship likes us. It's been waiting for someone like us. Like us how? Doyen asked. Most species are either purely logical or purely emotional, Hana said, the understanding flowing into her from the ship itself. But humans are both. We can calculate and dream. We can reason and feel. We can follow rules and break them. The ship has been waiting for a species that can hold contradictions in their minds. They explored deeper with this new understanding. Rooms that had been sealed now opened to them. They found chambers full of technology that operated on principles they couldn't name. Devices that responded to belief rather than switches. Engines that ran on hope instead of fuel. Navigation systems that charted courses through feelings rather than coordinates. Minho found himself laughing. It was absurd. All of it was absurd. His entire education, his years of training, meant nothing here. And somehow that was liberating. He stood in front of a machine and decided to try something completely illogical. He made the wrong choice on purpose. The machine rewarded him. It opened, revealing a chamber beyond. Inside was a sphere of contained light, or maybe darkness. It was hard to tell. The sphere seemed to be both bright and dark at the same time. It pulsed with impossible energy. I think that's the power core, Minho said. And I found it by deliberately choosing incorrectly. This place is wonderful and terrible, and I don't know how to feel about it. Feel all of it, Yuna said. That's the point. We're not supposed to choose between logic and emotion. We're supposed to use both. They gathered around the power core. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. It contained paradoxes, impossibilities, things that both existed and didn't exist simultaneously. Our scientists back on Earth would go mad trying to study this, Taiho said. Maybe that's why the ship was hidden, Hana suggested, waiting for people who could accept what they couldn't understand. The ship seemed to pulse with approval at her words. Beyond the power core, they found a chamber unlike any they had seen before. The walls were transparent, or maybe they weren't walls at all. Through them, the team could see stars, but not the stars of their own galaxy. These were alien constellations, impossible arrangements of light that shifted and changed as they watched. Where are we looking? Sora asked. Everywhere, Taiho said. Or nowhere. I think we're seeing multiple realities at once. In the center of the chamber stood the pods they had discovered earlier. The beings inside were clearer now, though they still looked different to each observer. Hana approached one of the pods carefully. She placed her hand on its surface. A rush of sensation flooded through her. Not thoughts or words, but pure experience. She felt herself existing in multiple places at once. She experienced time flowing backward and forward simultaneously. She understood what it meant to be a being without fixed form, without a single reality to call home. They're not dead, she gasped. They're waiting. They exist between states, between life and death, between being and not being. They're waiting for the right minds to observe them. What do you mean? Yuna asked. Hana struggled to explain. The concepts didn't fit into human language. In quantum mechanics, observation affects reality, right? These beings exist in a superposition. They're waiting for minds complex enough to observe them properly. Minds that can accept paradox. Taiho touched another pod. Visions filled his mind. He saw the history of the aliens who built this ship. They were an ancient species so old that time itself had worn away their physical forms. They had learned to exist across multiple dimensions, multiple realities. To them, the universe was not a single place but an infinite collection of overlapping possibilities. They had sent out ships like this one to explore the multiverse. Not to conquer or colonize, but to find others who could perceive reality the way they did. Most species they encountered were trapped in single-dimensional thinking. They could only see one reality, one truth, one way of being. But some species were different. Some could hold contradictions. Some could believe impossible things. Some could think in ways that transcended pure logic or pure chaos. They were looking for us, Taiho said. Not humans specifically, but species like us. Species that can be both rational and irrational, both scientific and spiritual, both logical and creative. Minho touched a pod and received his own vision. He saw countless civilizations across multiple realities. Some were purely logical, building perfect mathematical societies that eventually stagnated because they couldn't imagine anything beyond their calculations. Others were purely chaotic, burning bright with creativity but destroying themselves because they had no structure. The successful civilizations were the ones that balanced both. The ones that could build cities with mathematics but decorate them with art. The ones that could follow laws but also break them when necessary. The ones that could plan for the future but also embrace the unknown. We're rare, Minho said. Species like us are incredibly rare. Most intelligent life tends toward one extreme or the other. Yuna approached the largest pod. The being inside seemed to respond to her presence. It began to glow, or maybe she began to understand it better. Concepts flowed into her mind. The ship was a test. Any species that could navigate it would prove themselves worthy. Worthy of what? Worthy of joining a network of civilizations that existed across multiple realities. A multiversal alliance of beings who could perceive and navigate the true nature of existence. They want to invite us, Yuna said. Humanity. They want us to join them. Join them in what? Doyen asked. The answer came not in words but in visions. They all saw it together. A vast network of civilizations, each existing in their own reality but connected through ships like this one. They shared knowledge, art, technology. They helped each other navigate the difficult truth that the universe was far stranger than any single species could comprehend alone. This is first contact, Hana said, her voice shaking. Real first contact. Not with a single species, but with a multiversal civilization. The beings in the pods began to wake. Or maybe they had always been awake and the team was only now able to perceive them correctly. They emerged from their pods, taking forms that were different for each observer, but somehow the same. They didn't speak with sounds. They communicated through pure emotion and concept. The team felt their greetings, their curiosity, their approval. The aliens were pleased. Humanity had passed the test. What test? Sora asked. The answer came as a feeling. The test was simply to navigate the ship, to accept what couldn't be understood, to use both logic and intuition, to hold paradoxes without breaking. Most species failed this test. They either retreated in fear or destroyed themselves trying to force logic onto something that transcended logic. But the team had succeeded. They had adapted. They had learned. They had embraced the impossible. The aliens showed them more. They showed them technologies that ran on principles beyond human physics, faster than light travel powered by conscious will, weapons that defended by refusing to accept violence as real, medical devices that healed by convincing the body's atoms that they had never been damaged, communication systems that transmitted not information but understanding itself. This is incredible, Taiho said. This would change everything about human civilization. One of the aliens responded with a feeling that might have been amusement or warning. Yes, it would change everything. That was the point. Joining the multiversal alliance meant accepting that reality was not what humans thought it was. It meant letting go of certainty. It meant living with permanent uncertainty, with questions that had no answers, with truths that contradicted each other. Some humans won't be able to handle that, Doyen said. The alien agreed. Many humans would reject it. They would cling to their comfortable certainties. They would insist that the universe must make sense in the way they already believed it did. But some will embrace it, Hana said. Some will see it as the adventure it is. The aliens sent another message. This was a one-time offer. The ship had been waiting on Earth's moon for thousands of years. It had been waiting for humanity to develop enough to find it and navigate it. Now that they had, a choice must be made. Activate the ship's beacon and join the multiversal alliance, or refuse and watch the ship phase out of this reality forever. There would be no second chance. No time to debate or form committees. The offer was now. How long do we have? Yuna asked. The answer came as a feeling of urgency. 6 hours. After that, the ship would depart. 6 hours to make a decision that affects all of humanity, Minho said. That's impossible. The aliens sent a feeling of gentle disagreement. The decision didn't affect all of humanity. It affected only those humans who chose to embrace it. Those who wanted certainty could keep it. Those who wanted adventure could have it. Both paths would exist. But we have to decide for Earth, Yuna said. Whether to activate the beacon. Yes. That choice fell to the 5 of them. The first humans to successfully navigate the ship. The choice was theirs. Doyun looked at his teammates. We need to talk about this. We need to think it through carefully. The aliens withdrew, giving them privacy. The team gathered in a corner of the chamber. We can't make this decision alone, Doyun said. We need to contact Earth, get authorization. Form a committee to study the implications. There's no time, Hana said. 6 hours. By the time we explain everything to Earth and they debate it, the opportunity will be gone. Maybe that's okay, Minho said quietly. Maybe humanity isn't ready. We're never ready, Sora said. That's the whole point. They had 6 hours to decide the future. The team sat in the alien chamber, surrounded by technology they barely understood, facing a choice that seemed too large for 5 people to make. Let's be logical about this, Doyen said. What are the risks? Unknown, Minho replied. Everything about this is unknown. The aliens, their technology, their intentions. We have no way to verify anything they've shown us. They could be lying, Doyen said. This could be a trap, Hana shook her head. I don't think they can lie. Not in the way they communicate. They share concepts and feelings directly. There's no room for deception, but we could be misunderstanding them, Doyen argued. We're interpreting alien thoughts through human minds. There's huge potential for error. Yuna listened to both sides. As commander, the final decision would likely fall to her. The weight of it was crushing. How could 5 people decide something this important? What are the benefits? Sora asked. If we say yes, what do we gain? Everything, Hana said. Access to technologies beyond our imagination. Contact with multiple civilizations. Understanding of how reality really works. And if we say no? Sora continued. We stay safe, Doyen said. We continue developing at our own pace. We keep control of our own destiny, do we? Taiho asked quietly. The ship is leaving either way. If we refuse, we'll always know that we had a chance and walked away from it. That knowledge will haunt us. They talked in circles for an hour. Every argument for accepting led to a counter-argument about risk. Every argument for refusing led to a counter-argument about opportunity. Let me ask a different question, Yuna said. Not what should humanity do, but what would humanity do? What do you mean? Minho asked. Think about human history, Yuna said. Every major advancement came from people taking unreasonable risks. Crossing oceans in wooden boats. Strapping themselves to rockets. Splitting atoms before fully understanding the consequences. We've always leaped before we looked. And sometimes we've paid terrible prices for that, Doyen said. Wars, disasters, catastrophes. True, Yuna agreed. But we're still here. We survived because we adapted. Because we learned. Because we never stopped exploring even when it was dangerous. This is different, Doyen insisted. This isn't exploring a new continent or a new planet. This is accepting that everything we think we know is wrong. Is it wrong? Hana asked. Or is it just incomplete? The aliens aren't saying our science is false. They're saying it's limited to one reality. They're offering to show us more. Sora had been quiet, filming the discussion. Now she spoke up. I think we're asking the wrong question. We're not deciding whether humanity should join the Alliance. We're deciding whether to give humanity the choice. Everyone looked at her. If we refuse, Sora continued, we're deciding for everyone. We're saying no one gets to make this choice. But if we accept, if we activate the beacon, then humans can decide individually. Those who want certainty can stay on Earth. Those who want adventure can join the Alliance. But activating the beacon might have consequences for everyone, Doyun said. Not just those who choose to leave. Everything has consequences, Yuna said. The question is whether we trust humanity to handle them. They debated for another hour. Time was running out. Doyen remained firmly opposed. The risks were too great, the unknowns too many. Minho was also hesitant, though less certain than Doyen. He saw the potential benefits but feared the costs. Hana was in favor. She had dreamed of alien contact her entire life, and now it was here. She couldn't imagine refusing. Sora also leaned toward acceptance. As a documentarian, she understood that the best stories came from taking risks. Taeho was in the middle, seeing both sides clearly. The decision would likely come down to him. Yuna called for a vote. She wanted to know where everyone stood before making her final decision. "Doyen?" she asked. "No," he said firmly. "We refuse. The risks are too high." "Minho?" "I vote no," he said quietly. "We need more time." "Hana?" "Yes," Hana said. "We accept. This is what we've been waiting for." "Sora?" "Yes," Sora said. "We give humanity the choice." "Taeho?" He was quiet for a long moment. Everyone waited. "I've been thinking about why the ship was hidden on the moon," he finally said. "Why not make contact openly? Why not land on Earth and announce themselves?" "Maybe they didn't want to scare us," Sora suggested. "Or maybe," Taeho said, "they wanted to see if we could find them, if we could navigate their ship, if we could accept what we couldn't understand. This whole thing has been a test of whether humanity is ready. And we passed." "The 5 of us passed, so you vote yes?" Yuna asked. "I vote yes," Taeho said, "because saying no means we don't trust ourselves. It means we think humanity isn't ready. But we are ready. We proved it by getting this far, 3-2 in favor. But Yuna was the commander. Her vote could override them all. She thought about everything they had experienced. The impossible geometry, the paradoxical physics, the beings who existed in multiple states. None of it made sense by human standards. But humans had never let that stop them before. She thought about the early humans who left Africa not knowing what was beyond the horizon. The sailors who crossed oceans to unknown lands. The astronauts who flew to the moon on rockets that barely worked. Every one of them had faced the unknown and chosen courage over caution. "I've made my decision," Yuna said. She stood up and walked to the control console. The others followed. "We're going to activate the beacon," she said. "Not because it's safe, not because it's logical, but because it's human. We explore, we dream. We reach for things we don't understand. That's who we are. That's who we've always been." "Commander," Doyen said, "I'm asking you to reconsider." "I've considered," Yuna said. "I respect your concerns. They're valid, but I believe humanity can handle this. More than that, I believe humanity deserves this chance." She placed her hand on the console. The ship responded immediately. The power core began to pulse with increasing intensity. Throughout the ship, systems activated. The beacon began to transmit, sending a signal across multiple realities, announcing humanity's acceptance. The aliens gathered around them, their forms becoming clearer. They were pleased. They had waited so long for this moment. Changes began immediately. The team could feel their own perceptions expanding. They started to see layers of reality they hadn't noticed before. The chamber existed in multiple states simultaneously, and they could perceive all of them. "What's happening to us?" Minho asked. The aliens sent a feeling of reassurance. They were being given a gift, the ability to perceive beyond single-dimensional reality. They would become Earth's first ambassadors to the multiversal alliance, not separated from humanity, but serving as bridges between the familiar and the impossible. Over the next hours, the transformation continued. The ship rose from the lunar surface, pulling free from the rock that had hidden it for millennia. It moved into orbit around the moon, visible now to every telescope on Earth. The team watched their home planet from the alien ship. Earth hung in space, blue and white and beautiful. Fragile, precious. "We just changed everything," Doyen said quietly. He wasn't angry anymore, just awed. "Yes," Yuna said. "We did." Back on Earth, the world watched the alien ship appear in their sky. Panic spread in some places. Wonder in others. Scientists scrambled to understand what they were seeing. Governments demanded explanations. Religious leaders offered interpretations. Commander Yuna sent a message to Earth. She explained everything they had found, everything they had experienced, everything they had chosen. "We have been offered a place among civilizations that exist across multiple realities," she said. "We have accepted on behalf of those humans who want to embrace this future. Those who prefer the familiar path can take it. Both options remain valid, but humanity now has a choice we never had before. We can stay in our single reality, or we can explore the infinite possibilities beyond it." The message sent, she turned to her team. "Whatever happens next, we did this together. We made the choice that we thought was right. 6 months later, the alien ship remained in orbit. Thousands of humans had volunteered to visit it, to learn from the aliens, to begin understanding the technologies that operated beyond normal physics. Do-yoon and Minho had returned to the ship. Despite their initial opposition, they couldn't resist the opportunity to learn. They worked with alien engineers, building devices that made their scientific training seem like kindergarten lessons. It was frustrating and thrilling in equal measure. Hana established the first xenobiology department dedicated to studying beings from multiple realities. Sora documented everything, creating records that would help future generations understand this turning point in human history. Taeho led the teams building humanity's first reality-shifting vessels, and Yuna watched over it all, proud and terrified. Humanity was changing. Some people embraced it. Others rejected it. Society fractured and reformed in new patterns. It was messy and chaotic and beautiful. One evening, she stood at an observation window watching Earth turn below. An alien approached her, its form shifting between states. It sent a feeling of curiosity. Did she regret her decision? Yuna smiled. "Every day," she said honestly, "and I'd make the same choice again every time." The alien sent a feeling of understanding and approval. That was very human, to doubt and proceed anyway, to fear and embrace the fear, to hold contradictions without breaking. That was why humanity had been invited. Not because they were perfectly logical like some species, not because they were purely intuitive like others, but because they were both and neither and everything in between. Humanity had always been impossible. Now they were learning to make that impossibility their greatest strength.